What does organizing your closet mean? Have you ever thought, I just can't keep up? One way you can help your brain, and I love how Sarah Horgan, my guest on today's podcast, talks about how organizing is self care. And so today, specifically, we're talking about our closet and our wardrobe and what that looks like. What does it even mean to have an organized closet? There's several things she says that really stood out. Like, we're not wired to change through force. Attacking our entire closet in one weekend is not what will change our brain for the long term. To create an organized wardrobe and an organized closet, an organized style. Like, what does all that mean? We all have limited energy. So, organizing our closet and our wardrobe, how can that help us reduce decision fatigue and conserve energy for the other areas of our life that we really want to? That's what we're talking about today. So, listen for how she talks about we can organize our closet for real or we can fake it. I loved that. And then she does give us so many tips, and our conversation was so meaningful to me and I asked personal questions like to help me, which I always seem to do. But if your closet is consuming more energy than you want when you get ready in the morning, when you walk in, when you get ready for work, then this episode is for you. Are you ready to work less, feel more organized and productive, streamline repetitive tasks, and implement systems that allow your coaching business to run smoothly even without you? If so, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Organized Coach Podcast, your go-to source for practical tips and solutions. I'm your host, Tracy Hoth, professional organizer, certified life coach, simplifying expert, and most of all, down-to-earth fellow coach just like you. No matter if you think you're missing the organizing gene, have ADHD, or just love anything organizing, I'm here to help you become an organized coach with a business that works for you. Pull up a seat and let's get started. You all are going to love this. If you have any issues with your closet, getting ready, deciding what to wear, thinking about what your own personal style is, I have had the honor to get to know Sarah Horgan and have had her in my group, Organized Life Academy. She was our guest speaker last month, and it's going to be so fun. So, Sarah, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, why don't I have you start by just telling us about you and even telling us your story about how you came into this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the long and the short of it is 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I was really sick. And, those moments in life where it sort of pushes you to examine and dig deep. And I had this almost year of just moving through the illness and the treatments and everything, and then being home. And it was before I had my daughter. So I was on my own. And I just did so much deep reflection and really examined my perfectionism and my people pleasing, which were two things that I really actually thought were positives beforehand. I thought I was really detail orientated and I just had high standards and that I was nice. And what I really came to understand was that those two things were really standing in my way of taking risks, setting boundaries, these things that are important. So during that time, I read the minimalist book, Everything That Remains. And so it sort of began my minimalism journey where I started to think about these things on a deep level, the decisions we make, what we buy, what we keep, how our stuff takes up our time and energy. And being in a point in my life where I had very, very limited energy, the idea of getting rid of things was appealing to me. So that was sort of where I started. And, I did do some decluttering but I feel like I really sort of examined myself. And then fast forward and I became a mom and a full-time working mom. And I realized I just couldn't keep up with everything. And that's when I did the really deepest declutter. And I started to really dig into my sense of scarcity and why I was keeping things and that sort of thing. And when I realized how simple things got once I got rid of a lot of stuff and that I was actually able to handle things with a lot more ease. I thought I have to share this. Like, this is something that has really changed my life. I can manage being a full-time working mom. I also teach kindergarten and I have a kindergarten age child. Like, it is, I think, peak busyness of my life. And, really my house gets messy, sure, but like I can keep on top of things and it doesn't feel overwhelming anymore. And as well with my closet. So that was probably my hardest area. I had lots of clothes. I like to buy clothes and I worked through that as well. And so I just really found like now getting dressed is easy and it doesn't take the time it used to take. So yeah, that's really sort of the long and the short of it.
Oh, I love that story. So many things stood out. Now I'm going to try to have to remember what they were.
Mm.
But one thing that stood out was you said you had limited energy. And
Mm.
I'm thinking we all do, maybe not to the
Yeah.
extent as if we had an illness, but
Yeah.
we all have that. And
Yeah.
just from my own perspective as a professional organizer that went into people's homes, it's so like I look at people and think, there's no way I could keep up with this myself. Like
Yeah.
it's overwhelming the amount of
Mhm.
stuff. And just how you said it, you simplified and got rid of stuff and realized, oh, this is easier.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 100% true. Like, I think, I, like many people before, spent a lot of time organizing. Like you'd come to the weekend, be like, okay, I just got to organize this closet or I'm going to organize my kitchen. And I spend all this time and energy. And, I'm really good at organizing, but you can't out organize too much stuff. You can only sort of like shuffle things and put them in these boxes or move them around so many times. But once you actually do the decluttering and you get rid of stuff, you're like, oh, the organizing part, although there's like optimal and beautiful organization, but the organization itself becomes a lot more simpler
Yes.
once you have less to organize.
Yeah. It almost could happen on its own
Hmm.
because you have
Hmm.
less stuff. I mean, it's a lot of it's just the logical part of it. But then, yes, the
Yeah.
pictures and all the beauty of it.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
aesthetically pleasing when you walk into a space. It could
Yeah.
totally be upgraded, but yes, just
Yeah.
reduce the amount of stuff.
Yeah. Well, and we all have like, I think I can say from like my teacher brain, like I think spatially and like
Mm,
organizationally, like we all have different strengths. And
mhm.
so some of us are really good at organizing and like sort of spatially putting things together in a way that makes sense. And not everybody has that. So like,
Yeah.
getting help with organizing is really important if that's not your strength. But for, a lot of people, they do have organizing skills. It's that they're trying to out organize all their clutter.
Yes. Yes, that is so true. And yes, about the spatial part of it for sure. Yeah, I do
Yeah.
think that's a something that's you have innately or you've practiced it enough that you're better at it.
Yeah.
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 So now you have your company helps people. Tell us about how you help people.
Yeah. So currently I coach women. I work one-on-one right now. I'm in the process of developing a membership because I realized like I think that the community and also like working like, people working together and like benefiting from each other is what I'm really after creating. But I really help people dig deep and figure out what's behind your clutter, why is it there, and then how to shift it. And so it could be, your closet, or it could be, your kids' toys, or it could just be overall, like, you just have too much stuff. But on my journey through this, what I've realized is that clutter is never about the stuff. It's about, our buying behaviors and like why we're buying or why we're overbuying. Are you stressed? Are you bored? Like what are you trying to get away from? It's sort of, we like to be busy and we don't like to be uncomfortable. And so
Mhm.
buying things sort of solves both of those problems momentarily,
Yes.
but then it leads to a bigger problem. So it's sort of about examining yourself. And then the other piece of it that I've really like been learning more and more about is scarcity. And I think that's another thing that our brains are wired for scarcity. we used to have to survive and hunt for food and that sort of thing. And our brains just really haven't caught up with our modern world in all the ways that things operate now. So, when it comes to food or when it comes to stuff, like the people who had more food or had more stuff survived and did well. And so we're still wired that way.
Hmm.
And so it's sort of about retraining and like teaching ourselves to not think that way and to not behave that way. And I do think that it's a slow process of sort of reprogramming yourself. So the next time you notice you're sitting there with like a full cart of stuff on Amazon, closing your phone or closing your laptop and walking away and making that decision to not do it that time doesn't mean that you might not come back and make that mistake again that you don't want to make, but that you're in the process of like unlearning. And I think we just have to teach ourselves that we have enough and, lean into gratitude and just sort of teach our brains to think differently about stuff.
Yes. My friend and I, colleague and I were talking about the pause. Like when you said, put your
Yeah.
phone down, shut your computer. It's just taking
Mm,
that pause before you make decisions or before
yeah.
you even decisions with stuff, but also with food you're eating or with things that you're going to
Yeah.
say, or we were kind of relating it
Hmm.
to different things. So that
Yeah.
pause. So, what
Yeah.
I'm wanting to talk about today with you and
Hmm.
really get into is the closet and our wardrobe. And
Yeah.
as coaches, we're on Zoom. Probably a lot of us are not leaving the house, possibly.
Yeah.
But then we do for other activities and thinking about specifically about an organized wardrobe or closet.
Yeah.
How would you define that?
Like I'll start with saying that I think this statistic I'll share, I think is like maybe not true for all of us, but it kind of puts things in perspective. And I shared this before in your group about this study that was done where the average woman has 103 items in her closet with only 10% of it being wearable. So how they broke that down was they felt like things were too tight or too loose or something that was new or unworn, but really like it boiled down to leaving about 10% available that they were wearing. So that may be a little extreme for a lot of us, but even if your number is like 20 or 30%, you're still not wearing the majority of the clothes that you own. So it's not really an organized wardrobe if it's filled with things that you don't really
Mm.
access and you don't really reach for. So just to think about that little mindset piece first, and then to say, like, I think an organized wardrobe is, it doesn't have anything in it that isn't being used or isn't loved, and there's no excess clutter. And then to achieve that, we talked about the decluttering part. Like that's really the first step is clearing out the stuff that you are not wearing and that you're not loving. And you can do this different ways. Like you can do it for real. I also say to people, you can fake it and you can take out all the stuff that you don't love and put it in a maybe box or whatever you want to call it. But I like to call it a maybe box. Like these aren't things that I feel I can immediately get rid of, but I'm not in love with them either. So let me practice living without them. And it's really an easy step because then you don't have to commit to the decision of letting go of them, but you get to experience the space and the organization that's left behind when you get rid of all of that extra stuff. So that's what I would say. I think like organized. Then the second part is like creating that space, having it be easy to grab things, easy to see things. You can pull open a drawer or open your cupboard and like it's not crammed, things can move. You can slide your hangers around, you can see everything folded in your drawer. And you know what? I will say, like, I don't always fold my clothes. Like if I have a busy week, I can toss stuff in a drawer, but you can still see what's there. I enjoy folding and I like when things are folded, but I have enough space now that if I am in a rush that I can just throw things in and I still know what's in there. And so that is a luxury to me. And that's organized for me. Like I know where everything is, it has a place, and it's easy to find. And then I would say, lastly, I like to organize by item. So whether or not that's in your closet that you sort of do like tops and bottoms, And then you can further categorize, like you might have like t-shirts in your dresser, and then you might have blouses and blazers hanging in your closet, and you can categorize them that way. Pants, you might hang up your jeans or your khakis, and you might fold your leggings and your sweatpants or whatever, but you kind of organize things by category lastly. And if you want to get really fancy and you just love it, you can also then organize by color and sort of sort things. I am not in the season of my life where things are organized by color, but I feel one day I will be, because I think that sort of visual aesthetic is so lovely. And I do equate like decluttering and organization with self-care. And I think that creating a beautiful environment around us is just a form of self-love. So if you have that capacity, I think that would just be so wonderful to open a closet that's organized by category, and then you have this beautiful array of color as well. But that essentially your clothes have a place. There isn't clutter, there isn't stuff getting in the way, and that you can get dressed easily and quickly, and you can maintain it.
Oh my gosh. Organization is a form of self-care. That is
Yeah.
so good. It's not always getting the massage or taking a bath. It's like
Mhm.
having an
Yeah.
organized closet that you walk into every morning with the things
Yeah.
that you love, and you can see them and find them
Yeah.
easily and put them away easily.
Yeah.
That's so good. And I love how you said you can do it for real or you can fake it. That
Yeah.
is awesome. That makes me
Yeah.
want to do it because I'm not like making final decisions.
Like, I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And I do like personally sort of blame reality TV a little bit for all of this, because I think we saw all these amazing transformations of things, with like a whole crew of people coming in for a weekend, and then like space is transformed, or, like these weekend, like, project kind of shows. And the truth is, for a lot of us, like, we have a lot of moving parts in our lives, and that, what's actually feasible for us doesn't match up with that. So figure out the way that you can make it work for you. And so if that means that you do one drawer, on a Saturday night or something like that, and you pull stuff out and you're like, okay, I'm going to make a decision about my t-shirts, and you like keep it limited to that. That's not overwhelming. You might end up having to make a few decisions in that category, but you've done it. And as soon as you take action, like, it just feels so much better, and you're like working towards something. Like, I really try to dispel this whole myth with people that like you are going to conquer this in a short period of time, and you're going to like check it off a list. And those of us that love organization really love that idea of being able to like conquer something on the to-do list and check it off and feel productive. But this is a process, it's understanding ourselves, like clothes are related to our body image and how we feel about ourselves. They're related to like, events we've been to, or sentiment. And there's just a lot wrapped up in it. So I think like the slow process of just making decisions over time is really, really helpful. I mean, packing everything away too and living with the space, like that's how I did it. But I still took like 3 major rounds of decluttering to get rid of
Mm.
like most of the clothes.
Yes. And
So, yeah.
if you think about that, like in my own closet, if first I did by category, like tonight
Yeah.
I do my jeans, and
Yeah.
then the next day I pull out dresses or whatever, each category, and then you finish all those categories, and then you go back through like maybe the
Mhm.
closet rod and look at the and make sure you're
Yeah.
wearing everything in a shelf. It is just so much more peaceful and relaxing than what I want is one giant transformation with all new cute things that fit perfectly. Have it all
Yeah.
done in a weekend.
Totally. And
Yeah.
we just don't like, our brains just don't really work that way, like to actually create change and to change our behavior and the way we're thinking. Like, we just don't really work that way. So you could do all of that, but then the reality is then you might be tempted to go out and buy more clothes, or, whatever sort of rears up for you. But it like, we have these behaviors, we've gotten to where we are because of that and how we think. And so if we want to shift that and do something different, like we just have to practice it over time.
Yes. Yeah. And that sounds so much more caring than making
Mhm.
our brain and putting all this pressure on ourselves to get in there and
Yeah.
change the whole thing.
Yeah. And, like the more I learn, I go through this too, like, now I'm sort of learning a little more about like our nervous system and that sort of thing.
Mm.
Like we're really not wired to change through force, that sort of like hustle and that
Mhm.
push. That doesn't actually really work very well, or at least in the long term, it's not generally sustainable. But when we can do it in a way that's like really caring and loving and, you know, it makes our nervous system feel safe to like make these switches. And that's like sort of that internal wiring and all the stuff about the scarcity and like, like our old brain. And so it's like
Yeah.
we have to do it in a way that actually changes the way that we think and do to make it last.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so then I start thinking about our wardrobe, like what our
Mhm.
style is and how to make decisions with what's in our
Yeah.
closet and what we want to look like and putting outfits together. Or like if you're on Zoom all the time, like I could have 10 shirts that I switch through, but then they don't really make outfits because maybe they're
Mhm.
either too short or they don't, look right with a certain pair of pants or whatever. So how do
Mhm.
you help people make decisions about their style or their what their entire wardrobe then looks like?
So, one, I would say to people, don't keep anything that doesn't fit you well. Even if you're just using it on Zoom, like I would keep things that if somebody came to the door, like you would feel okay answering the door and
In the
and I
full
think
outfit or just the
yeah,
top?
yeah. Like you can be comfortable, I mean, I'm on Zoom too, and I often will wear like sweatpants or something as well because it's comfortable. But, there's so much clothing now that's like geared towards comfort that still looks tailored and like feels good to wear, like even sweatpants. And I mean, some are sort of on the higher end where there's like a lot of sustainable brands that have sort of done like workwear that feels like sweatpants and I think a lot of it came out of like the pandemic, but there are a lot of options out there. Most clothing has stretch in it now. And I think, for me, it was a big shift, like going through my wardrobe. What I did initially was I decided that I wasn't going to buy anything new except for like things that immediately needed to be replaced. And I was going to live with what I had because I do honestly feel like a lot of our wardrobe and a lot of what we wear has to do with our own like body image and that sort of thing. And so it's sort of like working through it. And then I really appreciated Courtney Carver, who developed Project 333. And she has a blog and all sorts of information. And she's a great voice in like minimalism and simplicity. But she said something along the lines of like, the least interesting thing about me is my clothes. And I
Mm.
really tried to adopt that. And then over time, I've sort of balanced it with like, okay, but I also want to feel put together. I want to feel good about myself. How do I want to present myself? And so I think that we can find clothes that feel good on our body, but also look good. So if you are on Zoom, like, find a pair of pants or two somewhere like I have a great pair of pants I love from Athleta that like look tailored. They have pockets, and they look like a trouser, but they really are like an athletic pant. And I wear those the most and I love them and I feel comfortable in them and I can move and all of those things. So that's like available to us and there's a lot out there. So I think you really should find clothes that feel good and then you like. And when you're on Zoom, you don't have to have a lot of options either. You can really have, I mean, I honestly wear probably two shirts most of the time when I record things. Like I like these two shirts and those are the two that I wear most of the time. If you want more variety, you can. Like, and that's the other piece of it too. I think like your wardrobe it's up to you, like what the right number is or like what feels good is totally up to you. For me, I like to have as little as possible because that feels good to me. But, over time, you figure out the gaps too. Like, okay, I wish I had a shirt like this. And you kind of can like notice and research that way too. Like, oh, it would be nice if I had, some more pattern or if I had like a long sleeve shirt that like fit this way. You can kind of like start to notice what you're missing too. So,
Well, and
yeah.
noticing patterns too, because I'm sitting here thinking as you said that, I'm like, oh, would I wear two shirts? I don't know, because I like
Yeah.
something different every day. Even so, then that made me think about how I cook dinner. If I have the
Yeah.
same thing in a month, I feel like we just had it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like,
Yeah.
interesting, something to think. Cause I
Yeah.
hear these people like, we have pizza every Friday night, or we have,
Yeah.
whatever, tacos every
Yeah.
Tuesday. I'm like, oh my, like I
Yeah.
could never do that. I like having it once every
Yeah.
2 months. So then I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, why is that? Do I want to change it or do I like that? And
Yeah.
how does it
And that's
relate?
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because we're all different. Like, whereas I can eat the same thing, like I'm like that where I make, I alternate between like two soups and like two muffins. And like I just like make the same things. Cause for me, it's like I know this by heart now. This is easy. Like this tastes good. My daughter likes it. Like I can just go on repeat. Like I don't have to
Yes.
think about it. Like I eat the same breakfast every day. Like so it's interesting that you bring that up because like different personalities. And
Yeah.
I don't think there's any rules around this. Like, I
Mhm.
think it's like what feels like the right number for you. So, like, you might have more capacity because you like the variety, whereas I'm like, okay, I like having less.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And to
it's
be
a good point.
aware of that pattern and decide intentionally if that's how I
Mhm.
want to do it, or
Yeah.
could I experiment with having five and like wearing the same things every
Yeah.
week? Like I could try that.
Yeah.
Then what comes up is like, what if I want to create a style? Like, what if we want a style? So for me, this
Mhm.
is what I wrote to you. I'm like, okay, I want to
Yeah.
have graphic t-shirts with really tailored, cool blazers over them.
Yeah.
When I see someone wear that, I'm like, oh, I love that. I want that to be my
Yeah.
style. But then I'm like,
Yeah.
but this blazer that I have isn't really, it just isn't tailored as much as I want. And then I go look for graphic tees and I can't find, they're all like rock
Yeah.
bands that I don't even know or goofy
Yeah.
cartoons or something. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
gosh. So then I think, well, I can't have that be my style because I don't have really enough or anything in that. So what
Mhm.
do you do?
Okay, well, one, I feel like this isn't like the most glamorous answer, but I feel like it takes time. Like, I know what you mean because when you seek out like a specific item, I think it does take some time and research. And I think going and trying things on and kind of knowing. So it's not the answer that everybody likes, but I do honestly think that it really takes time because we're sort of set in where we shop or what we know too, and that means like sort of expanding out of where you're comfortable with, and like okay, maybe you always buy things from like the Gap and J Crew or something like that. So now you might explore some like smaller brands or some other big box or whatever. So you do have to sort of take the time to go and try things on and have a sense. Like I think there are really great blazers out there. Like I had one when I was pregnant that was like a maternity blazer and it had the most amount of stretch and it was awesome, but the way that it was structured, it like had great shape. And so I think there are really great brands out there, but I just think it takes sort of like a little bit of research. And I do find personally in the things that I've come across or like acquired myself that a lot of the sort of like smaller brands of like sustainable fashion, like stuff is so well made. Like there's a couple that I can share with you afterwards for the notes if you want or the links, but I'm not even sure how to say this. She's a Canadian brand. It's spelled Miik, like maybe it's Mick or something like that. But
Yeah.
her whole thing is buttery, soft, stretchy work clothing and she has these great blazers that hold their shape, but they're so comfortable to wear. And
Mm.
I've come across like a number of brands like that, but all of them are more in the sort of like sustainable fashion realm. So it is like sometimes a little bit of an investment for a piece like that. But if you end up with like two blazers that you love and you wear all the time and they feel great, like it kind of balances out if you spend because I find like typically if we end up with something we don't love, then we like buy something else and we buy something else. And then you end up spending the
Yes.
same amount of money on like five items versus like one or two. So I do think it takes some research. And the other thing that's really great actually is like shopping secondhand and like sort of
Mm,
because sometimes those like more expensive items than if somebody's selling,
mm.
if you kind of have an idea of what it is, you can find on Poshmark and that kind of thing. And then like I had this dress that I bought for a wedding and I tried on. I was like, oh, I don't really love it that much. And I sent it back. And then like a year later, I was like, wow, I really really love that dress. And then it wasn't available anymore and I found it on Poshmark. So like I think you can find things, with a little, but it takes some work. T-shirts, like that kind of thing you can always have made too. Like you can get printed and that sort of thing. But again, like I think a little research, you can find some cool stuff too.
Yes. So that's, you had said in the beginning, that's not the glamorous answer, but I think,
Mhm.
okay, if 1 year from now I have
Mhm.
this visual of my closet and of my
Mhm.
style, and I just focus on that, do some research, try things where
Yeah.
that then in a year, like I look back and I'm like, okay, spending a year figuring that out and trying
Yeah.
things and, researching and being patient with the process.
Mhm. Because right now, I mean, you're wearing your clothes right now, and maybe you don't like, I sort of say this to women too, like you are currently wearing the things in your closet that you may not love, and you've been getting by just fine. And although it's not your ideal, but if you're working towards something and you're really being intentional about it, like you'll get there. And it's like, when you hit a season and you get that like urge because you see somebody wearing like a beautiful winter coat or new boots or something like that. And you're like, oh, I want to do that. And then I remind myself, I'm like, this is 3 months. Like I have these and I can make it through this and decide because you're sort of deciding where your priorities are too, like how
Yeah.
you want to spend your money, like, that sort of thing. And just sort of take the time to like notice what you like. And then, if you get through those 3 months with what you have, and then at the end of the season, you decide, like, oh, I'm going to buy that coat on sale now because I do really like it. And, I have it for next year or whatever. Like, the patience game does pay off, and it
Yes.
it also like, again, the scarcity brain where we're like, oh, I want that. And if you wait, like you're going to see, 20 or 50 other women dressed for winter and notice like, oh, I really like her boots, or I really like those. Actually, I like those better, because there is so much out there in the world. So I think like if
Mhm.
you can sort of slow yourself down, you can realize like, actually, that may have not been what I really wanted.
Yeah.
Like we just
Yeah.
sort of have to take the time with it sometimes. So
Yeah.
it's like I teach my students, like, we have to manage our impulsivity and take our time, practice the pause.
Yes, practice the pause. One of the things you had said in our group was that I really like, and I think
Mm.
all of us could start here, is going into our closet and finding, let's say, our 5 favorite things, and like really
Mhm.
thinking about why we like them. So if it's
Yeah.
this certain, like you with your certain pair of pants that you like, why do
Yeah.
you like it? What do you like about it? Would you want
Yeah.
them in another color? Would that be like
Mm.
fill out your wardrobe or whatever? And just really, why do we
Mhm.
like it and what do we like about it? And where do we want to go from there?
That is just, I think that that's the research part of it. And like for me, for example, with those pants from Athleta, which sadly they are not available because I went to buy another pair. But I know that I like, okay, they have pockets. I like the material. They're stretchy. They're tailored. So they have structure. They're, like a tapered leg because I'm 5'2". Like I can't do like a wide leg or anything. You start to know these things about yourself. They have a
Yes.
wide waistband, so they fit comfortably, and just the length of them, like all of those things. Like once I start to know, like, okay, I never want a shirt that is shorter than 24 inches because, like I'm kind of busty. As soon as I put that on, I'm 5'2", like it shortens right up. And then I feel like I just know that that doesn't look good on me and I want it to hit at a certain place. So like you start to know those things about your clothes. So when you go to shop, I go immediately to like product details or whatever, and I can see, oh, that's 23 inches. No, it's beautiful, but it's not for me. And so you start to like know those little details about things, like a certain rise in a pair of pants. Like I know what rise I want. So then when I go to shop, I can look and say, okay, no, that's like mid-rise. I don't want mid-rise pants. Like I bend over all day long with children. I want high-rise pants, like
Yeah.
those are the things that you start to know about your lifestyle, what's comfortable for you, what looks good on your body, because we're all different. Like
Yeah.
even if there's those things out there that say, oh, like great wardrobe staples for short women. I know that my short, like what looks good on me is different to like somebody who has a different body type. Like we're all different. So you really have to figure out what suits you and what you feel most comfortable in. And that's like all those details like sleeve length, neckline, fabrics, like I really like structure in clothes. And I've come to realize that because when I wear sort of a clingy t-shirt, like I don't like how the fabric sticks to the fabric of my pants and like it just doesn't look as put together to me, like things like that. So it's really important to do that research and just like pay attention. And then when you go to the store and you try stuff on, don't get tempted to buy something because it's okay. Like it's again like
Mm.
checking that thing off the list, because those okay items are the ones that you end up decluttering down the line. Like save that $50 or whatever you were going to spend on an okay item, and if you go somewhere else and you see something that's $100 and it's amazing, think, I'm going to get this one amazing item that I might have like gone and spent $100 on two or three like okay items. And you really end up getting things that just like it feels good. Like, okay, I've got those pants. I'm going to feel good in those pants. I don't have to think twice about it. So you're freeing up all this cognitive space in your
Mm.
brain that you like wasted on getting dressed. You're also not starting the day thinking all these negative thoughts about yourself where you're like, oh, these pants look terrible on me. I look awful. Oh, I'm like so frumpy or whatever the things you think. Like you're just starting the day with like, I feel good. You don't have to feel like I look incredible every single day of your life because that's just not realistic. We don't feel that way. Like I think hormonally, like all the things that women go through, but
Mhm.
like, you know, if you feel good and you feel comfortable and you have clothes that fit and like that overall, like you've adhered to a style that you want to build, like that's, yeah, it's about how you feel. So,
Yeah. That's so good. And okay, 2 things. So we're
mhm.
taking a trip and I saw probably on Instagram or something
Yeah,
a picture of a packing list, and the girl took a picture of herself in the outfit, fully
yeah,
dressed in the outfit, and then put it next, like on a PDF or whatever,
yeah,
showing what she was going to wear each day. And I thought,
yeah,
oh, that would just be freeing. Then you go on the trip
yeah.
and you don't have to think about it. So then I thought that's what we could do in our closet is just have
Hmm.
those pictures too, even
Yeah,
taped on the wall or wherever,
yeah,
that we have full outfits. So then we go in the morning, we know exactly like these are
yeah,
my 10 options and I can mix them up, but you know,
yeah,
I know what I'm wearing. Just like you eating breakfast every day, the same thing. You don't have to think about
yeah,
it. You've reduced decision fatigue. And if we did that, if we took
yeah.
the time to do that, we'd walk in our office or our closet and not have that work
Hmm.
energy spent figuring it out.
Hmm. And I think like, different points in life, like you'll have more space for like, creativity and that sort of thing. But, if this isn't like the focus in your life right now, like
Yeah.
streamline it as much as you can. Like you
Yeah.
said, just know this is an outfit. Like I probably wear the same 4 or 5 outfits a week. Sometimes I mix it up a little bit, but I'm like, yeah, I like this together. I like this together. It's just, yeah, takes me 2 minutes and that's it.
And it's all done. Like your mind is
Yeah.
free from thinking about
Free.
it and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
judging yourself in your clothes because you already know you feel good. I love that so much.
Yeah.
So then I was thinking, okay, as you do this, I have a idea tracker that I put ideas in and
Mhm.
things. And so I can totally see one of the tabs being wardrobe. And you can
Yeah.
put brands that you like in there and like your 24-inch t-shirt and put the
Yeah.
length of pant you like and certain styles you like and I don't know, sale prices, whatever it is that
Yeah.
you are tracking to put it on a page in there and keep all your
Yeah.
information in there together.
Totally. Because I think the sale thing too, like I've noticed this now because that's another thing that sort of pulls on that scarcity where we like see the sale price and we're like, oh, I got to get it now. And the reality is that most things go on sale again and sometimes even more on sale. There are certain things for sure, like you might miss the boat on something, but there's going to be something else like it. Like this world is so full of stuff. And if something's really great and it's really popular, then other brands tend to replicate it. So like there is going to be that option out there. And if you have to wait a little longer or you don't find it right away, that's okay. It's just we have to sort of practice that, being
Yeah.
okay with the wait.
Just the way you talk about it is so calming. It's like, it's okay.
Oh.
I love waiting but I do think that people get on, even myself, like I somehow get on these emails and now text
Mm,
messages. And I mean,
yeah.
I would recommend, and I think you have said this too, that to just get off all of those, because when you were saying that
Yeah.
it'll come on sale again, I'm like, well, then how do you know when it's on sale? Because, oh, well, they'll
Mm,
email me. But then you're like, no,
yeah.
then I'm tempted to look at everything. And
Yeah.
putting that in front of yourself is not going to help you reach your goal if your goal is to get more
No.
minimal in your closet.
And it's really designed that way. Like I have the same thing. Like I have the same thought process sometimes, like especially for my daughter, like, I'll see an email come through. I'm like, oh, raincoats. Like I should get next year's raincoat, like, and you click through and then I'm like, no, 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 no. Like close, unsubscribe. You really do have to constantly sort of fight against it because I mean, marketing is really well designed and
Yeah.
they know the things and it's all, I heard this really interesting podcast. I think the man's I don't remember his name, but I think his book was called Scarcity Brain, but he talks about the scarcity loop. And it's sort of the way that our brains work when we get triggered by the scarcity and how it like sort of moves through our thinking. But that like marketing uses that scarcity loop as a basis for how they design everything. So, when you see, oh, I don't know when I'm going to be doing this again, sign up now, that kind of stuff. Like it's designed to get us in. And some of it's like, it's not always ill intention. Like, if people feel like they're selling a course or something like that that's like really helpful, they know like pulling people in that way is going to help them make a decision. But
Hmm.
I think like we have to just recognize that about ourselves. So when it comes to buying clothes, like we don't want to always get pulled in that way. And if you
Yeah.
have a list, like you said, and these are things that you're looking for, and if I had that like, okay, size 7 raincoat on the list for my daughter, and I saw that 30% sale, like that's a great time to buy it. But if it's just like I'm impulsively reacting to it, like
Mhm.
that's what you want to practice the pause. Stop
Yeah.
yourself. Say, oh, before I check out, wait 24 hours or whatever it is.
Yeah. And there again, if you're getting these emails, then you're spending time sifting through
Yeah.
emails as well as going to click through, visiting the
Yeah.
site, making a decision not to, going back to
Right.
your email, like just
Yeah.
continually unsubscribe if that is helpful to you. Or one of my
Yeah.
friends says he has a junk email that he lets all those subscriptions go to so that
Yeah.
when we were talking about birthdays, like when things go on
Yeah.
sale for your birthday, he can just go in there
Yeah.
and search for the
Oh,
discounts
yeah.
he wants. And then, but he's not looking at it every day and he's not trying to keep
Mhm.
it cleaned out and being
Yeah.
tempted constantly.
Yeah.
So,
No, because it happens so quickly too. Like, I mean, I catch myself too sometimes where you like click through something and like, oh my God, I've been doing this for 20 minutes. Like, what could you
yeah,
have done with 20 minutes? Like, I could have read a book. I could have taken a nap. I could have, worked out. I could have done so many things, but instead I just spent it staring at a screen and then ultimately being like, no, this isn't what I want to be doing, So
deciding that.
we
Yeah.
have to really fight against it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like you said, unsubscribe because it's setting up like you're setting boundaries for yourself.
Right. Okay. So this has been really good. The thing I'm walking away with that I want to start with is going in and seeing what my favorite things are and deciding
Mm-hmm.
how does that fit in and how can I then look at the other things to see if they go with it, see how it fits,
Yeah.
and then go category by category with no rush.
Yeah. No
So
rush.
that's
That's the hardest part. It's no rush. We just have to, fight against that, but it is no rush. And we have so many other priorities in our lives. And if you can remember that, I'm going to spend this time with my kids or exercising or resting or whatever, just balance it out. Like we don't have
yeah.
to be spending so much time thinking about what we're wearing.
It's self-care and it's a gift to our brain to reduce
Hmm.
decision fatigue.
We make a lot
Love
of
it.
decisions in a day. Yeah.
I know. Okay, anything else that you want to share?
I feel like as women, we're really having to fight against and undo so much of this thinking about our appearance. And it consumes so much of us that, we can really just start practicing thinking thoughts that like build up our like self-worth and our self-love. And, remember, like, we are loved, and for all the things that we bring to the world that have nothing to do with what we look like. But then to balance that with building a wardrobe that makes you feel good, because that is self-care, but it being about you and not about what other people think. Like
Mm.
making sure you feel good. That's the work to me. Like, it really is. All this decluttering and stuff is really about our internal selves and how we feel about ourselves. And the more that we can like cultivate the self-care and the self-love, I think the rest of it becomes easier and easier.
Yes, I think all the creative people out there are like, no, it's an expression of who I am.
Mhm.
Yes, with the internal
Mhm.
work as well. And then
Yeah.
if that's how
Yeah.
you express who you are, 100%, but it goes
Yeah.
along with that. And then one
Yeah.
other trick that I forgot to mention this
Mm.
is you had said if it's a maybe item, like you think you will wear it, to wear it that
Yeah.
day. And so
Oh, yeah.
one of the people in my Organized Life Academy, she was wearing an outfit or a shirt. I don't even remember what it was, but
Yeah.
she was wearing it and she's like, "Yep, this was a maybe and I'm wearing it." And she's like, "I really like it." And it was so fun to hear her
That's
put that into
awesome.
practice. So if you're undecided on an item, wear it
Yeah.
tomorrow and then see
Yeah.
how it feels.
And then decide that day. Because if you wear it and you're like, oh, I was pulling these pants up all day, it was
Yeah.
terrible. Like, I don't want to do this. Get rid of them. Because then the next time you wear them, you're going to do the same thing. So there's no reason to keep them. But if like that, you like wear something, you're like, actually, I forgot how much I like this, and the color's great, or I felt good in it. And just, yeah, you might enjoy something that you didn't give any attention to because it was buried in there.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sarah. We're organizing our closet and our wardrobe and our style, but also our brain and
Yeah.
caring for ourselves in the process. So it's been so good.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here. Where can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Simple Intentional. You can find me at my website, which is .com. And I have a podcast, which is called the Simple and Intentional Podcast. And like I mentioned, I'm in the process, but I'm learning it's a process of developing a membership, which I'm really excited about. It's going to be filled with a lot of great stuff, which will be coming in the next couple of months.
Perfect. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Wait, if you're finding this podcast useful, you must check out the Organized Coach Academy. It's my course where I walk you through every step to get your business organized, to get yourself organized, to save money and time, to prepare to hire someone, to do all the things that you want to do in your business with ease. Check that out at simplysquaredaway.com/OCA. Also, I'm sure you've heard this a million times, but I would love it. It's my way of knowing that you're enjoying the podcast if you leave a written review. I have lots of freebies for you. They're linked in the show notes. You can find them in my bio on Instagram at Tracy Hoth. And until next week, have a beautiful day.